Hello and welcome to the Tennessee Informer. Thank you for joining us tonight. The John Birch Society has been around for over 60 years and has been much maligned by those on the left and some supposedly on the right. But what do you know about them, and could you be a potential Bircher? Well, if you claim to be a conservative follower of the Constitution, I hope you are. Our guest today is Arthur Hampton, the Southeast Regional Director of the John Birch Society. Thanks for being with us. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, Dave. It's good to be here, and thanks for having me on the show.
Well, glad to have you. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're on the road a lot.
Indeed, all over the Southeast. Um, the John Birch Society is a nonpartisan or apolitical education and action-oriented organization that was formed to enable responsible Americans to restore and preserve freedom and rout those forces working to enslave mankind. And I think more and more that's what's coming out of what we've said. It just seems like we were right most of the time. I've got, or pretty much all the time, I've got a friend that lives in Tuscaloosa, and he keeps all the old magazines that we posted, the New American 20, 30 years ago that we were talking about this, and lo and behold, we were right. And so that's some of the things that we usually get. We're just reporting the news before our time, it seems like, but that's the power of propaganda. Is they misinform you, or they inform you so late that there's really nothing you can do about it, and by the time you do get the news on what's going on, it's so late there's nothing you can do about it anyway. So why bother? And that's the mindset that they want people in, is the why bother mindset, so that you don't get active. I mean, that's the whole goal, is to prevent you from standing up and getting active. Oh, well, there's nothing I can do about it anyway.
Right.
Well, that's the mindset they want you in. And by you not acting, you're playing right into their hands.
But I do want to cover just a little bit here with John Birch. So we hear the name, but who was John Birch?
So John Birch was a Christian missionary from Macon, Georgia. He was a missionary to China. And are you familiar with the Doolittle Raiders?
Yes.
I don't know if y'all are familiar with the Doolittle Raiders. Quick history. The Doolittle Raiders, after Pearl Harbor, America wanted to strike back at Japan, and so Colonel Doolittle, they sent this aircraft carrier with these bombers to bomb Japan, to strike back against Japan after Pearl Harbor, and they didn't have the technology. The bombers were so big and heavy they could not land back on the plane. Or excuse me, back on the ship, the aircraft carrier. And so they decided, we're going to bomb Japan and then crash land in China.
A plan to crash land, huh? Wow.
One-way trip. Those were some brave men to do that. Now, in planning this mission, they I don't know who planned it, but you would think if the plan is to crash land in China, you would put some people in the plane that could speak Chinese. I mean,
yeah, it might be a good idea.
It might be a good idea. So, but they didn't. And that's kind of where the missionary, John Birch, comes in, is they crash land in China. They bomb Japan. They crash land in China. And they're trying to hide from the Japanese, and they're talking to these Chinese people, and these Chinese are like, I don't know English, but I know a guy. And so they introduce the Doolittle Raiders to John Birch, and he ultimately saves the lives of the Doolittle Raiders. And he did such a good job with keeping track of the enemy's movements that they give him a field commission. He was Captain John Birch, and he helped the war effort. He did such a good job as an intelligence officer keeping track of the movements of the enemy that 10 days after the end of World War II, that he was stopped at a checkpoint and murdered by the Chinese communists under Chairman Mao Zedong 10 days after World War II.
Wow.
And what we do today as the John Birch Society is we keep the legacy of Captain John Birch, the Christian missionary and martyr to China, by keeping track of the communist movements and the deep state movements today. And, when you're dealing with politics, when you're dealing with all these different issues, you have to understand the angle that anybody says anything. Once you understand the angle of what somebody says or their goals, then you can understand why they say what they say. For example, Bill Gates, he's been talking about population control for, 30 or 40 years.
Right.
Okay, that's his goal. Okay, he openly talks about it. That's not a theory because it's straight out of the horse's mouth. And quite frankly, at this point, it's not even a conspiracy, because a conspiracy requires two things. One is evil intent, and the second is secrecy. And
Right.
he's openly telling us what he's going to do. So at this point, it's not even a conspiracy.
Right.
And then when he comes out with a vaccine and they're giving it to little girls in Africa that's sterilizing them, you go, wait a minute. This product that you're producing is getting you to your goal.
Yeah.
That is population reduction, or population, whatever you want to talk about, or whatever you want to term it. So I was born at night, but I wasn't born last night. And so there's something going on here. Your product is getting you to your goal.
Right.
That's kind of strange. Well, it's not strange at all. That's his goal. And so understanding that, and they control all of the media, all the what I guess they term legacy media now.
Right. Well,
And
they
so
have
you
for
don't
years.
hear about that.
Well, but let me ask you this: as far as the John Birch Society, who was it that started it originally?
Now, that was Robert Welch. So he was basically a genius. He was reading at age 2. He memorized all the multiplication tables at age 4. He did algebra at 6 years old. He was basically a boy genius. He entered high school at age 10, enrolled in college at 12, entered into the Naval Academy at age 13. He attended Harvard Law School for 2.5 years. You're talking about a prodigy.
Wow.
And what he did was he saw what they did to Joe McCarthy, because McCarthy, he tried to fight the communists up front. And what he didn't know was they were already so ingrained by this time that he didn't realize it. And
Right.
so when he tried to go up front, he was an Irishman fighting Irish. He wanted to, fight them up front. And they basically just through their control of the media, just defaced him and made him out to be this crazy guy that's a drunk.
Well, General Marshall called him out.
Yeah.
What do we know about Marshall? I mean, was that just really his opinion of McCarthy, or was he a bad actor? Do we know anything about that? I had somebody on the show the other night, and I asked that, and he said he did not know. But I was just curious if you'd ever heard anything about Marshall.
At the very least, he was probably on someone's payroll. At the very least.
Based on what?
I can give you the stuff, but I don't have that at my fingertips right now.
Okay.
So one of the many. And Robert Welch saw this. And what he said was, well, that didn't work. What Joe McCarthy didn't work. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a step back. He said, we're not going to do it through parties, because the hoops that they make you jump through to become a party, they can control you. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a step back. We're going to be apolitical, and we're going to educate the populace
On the issues.
now, on the issues at hand. Now, that's a hard sell, because you don't see the results up front.
Right.
Okay, when you get somebody elected, You see the results. They get elected, they get in power, and but the problem is,
And they usually disappoint,
it,
but that's beside the point.
well, well, yes, because they don't know the Constitution, and they don't. That you walk into a snake pit,
Yeah.
and when you get a promotion from used car salesman, you become a lobbyist. And these people are the smoothest talkers that you can ever imagine. I mean, I told one lady, you keep your forked tongue behind your teeth. Just don't even talk to me. And basically what it is the biblical principle of taking counsel from the wicked. That's what they're doing.
Right.
It's best just not even to entertain it. In Eve's first mistake was she was talking to the serpent. Don't even talk to him. You know they're evil. Don't even engage them. It's like talking to the salesman. The longer you stand there, the more likely you are to buy the product. You know the product's garbage. Don't even talk to them.
Well, but
Okay?
now sometimes these lobbyists might be from organizations that these people don't realize are bad organizations, and maybe they're supported by a lot of their constituents or whatever. I'll give you a perfect example. Farm Bureau here in Tennessee, well, and everywhere, they've got a lot of oomph, and they're on the wrong side of a lot of issues. But most people think Farm Bureau's, an all-American organization, and they do. I'm not saying everything they do is bad by any means, but they definitely support some bad legislation in our state.
Well, it's the same thing like that in practically every issue. Okay, I'll give you a couple examples while we got some time. So Mo Brooks, who was a congressman in North Alabama,
Yep.
he got ousted by the farmers. Now, what he was trying to do was help the farmers, but they wanted government subsidies. And he said, come on now, that's redistribution of wealth. If we just lower your taxes, you can produce, cut down on the regulation, you can produce and make your own money. You don't need money from the government. But the taxes are so high, we're taxed into oblivion, and all these regulations, you can't produce, and so you need this subsidy. I mean, that's all it is.
Right.
And I've been to every state from North and South Carolina all the way. This is my territory. North and South Carolina to Texas, Kentucky to Miami, Florida. And I've been to many state houses, Atlanta, Nashville, Montgomery, Columbia, South Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina. And it's basically all the same. Really, it is. And this is a coordinated effort because all of the bills come up around, all the bad bills come up
Yep.
around the same time. And it's basically the same bill, just with the trimmings. It's the same cake. You got, different trimmings here and there. It's different. The icing's a little bit different, but it's basically the bones of it's the same.
A lot of them come from ALEC, right? From ALEC?
Well, it depends on the organization. I mean, I was in Atlanta, and it turns out that it's every single state house. The last 2 or 3 weeks that the session is still going, you'll see 4,000 bills. 4,000, and that's one state house.
Right.
And it's in every state house. They're just pushing and pushing and pushing through. It's designed to where one person cannot keep track of it all.
Right.
Now, I like Ron Paul's philosophy. I'm going to vote no until I get to read the bill at least.
Right. Right.
If we had all that mentality, we'd be doing well. I mean, if you voted no every time, you'd be right like 96% of the time anyway.
Pretty much.
So, but I forgot where we were going.
Well, let me ask you. Go ahead.
One more thing. Every single state has a pro-life organization.
Right.
Okay. Most pro-life organizations perpetuate their own existence.
I've heard that.
Even down to the women's clinics that, the women's clinic is good. We got, one here in Greenville, South Carolina that's really good, but they send people to Columbia to perpetuate their own existence. They go down there and they advocate for, I'm pro-life, but I want all these exceptions,
Right.
all these things. Well, just say you're pro-abortion. I mean, just
Right. Yeah.
that you put so many qualifications on it that at that point it's the reverse of what you're saying. Now, what they do at the clinic is fine, but they send people to Columbia to oppose it. The biggest problem within the pro-life movement in the entire Southeast, I'd say all over America, really, except for your really blue states, is the pro-life establishment. And that's it. It's that way with pretty much every single issue.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think the right to life, they've hurt themselves here in Tennessee for sure. Let me ask you this: I know there's not just one topic, and of course you guys are overall opposing communism / any kind of tyrannical government. What are some of the different topics that you guys focus on?
So when you're fighting communism wants the totality of life.
Yep.
Okay. And you can't just pick one topic. It's an entire worldview. Okay. It's like, coming out of the Matrix, really. I think red pill is a good thing. G. Edward Griffin actually used to work for the John Birch Society. We paid him to write the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. And I think that's very appropriate. What we want to do is we got all these branch issues. One of them is stopping the Constitutional Convention. We want to preserve the Constitution.
Okay. Convention of the
and
States.
I think I talked about that last time I was up there with you in Tennessee.
Yeah.
We got folks that say, "Oh, well, we want to change the Constitution, and that's going to solve all the world's problems," and that doesn't even really make any sense. What's wrong with our Constitution? They're not following it to begin with. I think that's the problem. They're not following it.
Yeah, and people don't understand
the other issue. Yeah. Another issue would be critical race theory in the schools. We appeal to, moms because of this issue. They care about their children. Critical race theory and informing people about that is a subclass of critical class theory. Now, I'm not going to give you, I got a whole lecture on this,
right,
but I'm going to give you the 30-second, boiled down version.
Yep.
Karl Marx wrote a book called The Communist Manifesto. The very first chapter, you pit the bourgeoisie against the proletariat. Okay, it's basically divide and conquer.
Right.
You get these two people fighting each other, and then you behind the scenes do whatever you want to do. It's kind of like the Hunger Games. The Capitol does whatever it wants to do because all the districts are fighting each other. The districts are not the enemy. It's the Capitol that's behind the scenes doing that. But you've basically directed your enemies to fight each other while you do whatever you want. Now, there was some Marxists that picked up on this critical class theory, started the Frankfurt School in Germany.
Right.
And they developed critical class theory further into critical race theory.
Yep.
And every single dictator of the 20th century has utilized this ideology. Hitler used textbook critical race theory to ostracize the Jews, to paint them in a bad light, to commit all the atrocities during World War II. Chairman Mao Zedong and the Chinese Communists, they utilized it to ostracize the Chinese capitalists. Mussolini used it. Stalin, Lenin, Trotsky, all of them. Every last Pol Pot, every last dictator of the 20th century has used this. It's step one. And that's the first chapter of the Communist Manifesto. And we're teaching it to our children in our schools. As this is a good thing. Oh, it's going to stop systemic racism. No, it creates racism.
Yep.
And that's what they like to do. They like to name things the opposite of what it really is.
Well, that's just like pretty much any bill that comes out of D.C. Whatever that bill says it's intended to do, it's intended to do the opposite half the time.
Absolutely. The most, I think the most funny one was what was it? The Affordable Care Act.
Right.
It was the most unaffordable bill there was. I mean, good night. But and we had a recent in South Carolina. We had a recent bill passed last year. It was the heartbeat bill. You're not supposed to, kill a baby if you hear a heartbeat. But the problem is the bill has it's got the fox guarding the hen house. I mean, Planned Parenthood gets to decide whether there's a heartbeat or not.
How does that work?
I mean, if you got the little thing, I forgot what it's called, on the woman, the pregnant woman's belly, and
The
you hear a
ultrasound?
heartbeat. Well, you're not going to hear one on the other side, so you go to the other side. Oh, no heartbeat. Let's kill the baby. You know.
They're allowed to do that? That's in the law?
Well, if there's no heartbeat, and what's worse is they'll tout this and say, "Oh, we did so great. We've stopped clinic abortions by 50%." Now that is true. The in-clinic abortions has decreased.
They're doing them all by drugs now. That's happening in Tennessee
Yes.
as well. Yeah.
What they don't tell you is that bill legalized at-home abortion, mail-in abortions, and they tripled, maybe quadrupled, and that's just the ones we can track.
Right.
It's probably even more than that.
Right.
At-home abort. And so that's what it does. They throw all this fat in there that it makes it the opposite of what it really meant, it says. And so we got critical race theory, we got Convention of States. The other one is our action initiative is to keep our police local, support our local police, and keep them independent and local. Now, the reason why we have that is if you have to understand the big picture, you have to understand the angle. Remember, Obama was trying to have a nationalized police force.
Right. Right.
Just all I gotta say is look at the 20th century. Who had a nationalized police force?
Right.
Virtually every single communist dictator of the 20th century has had a nationalized police force. So there's these common denominators amongst them. I mean, Hitler had the Gestapo. Lenin started the KGB. Chairman Mao Zedong had the secret police. Mussolini had his own. Castro had his own. I mean, you name it. They had their own organization. They had their own private police force that was not beholden to the people. It was beholden to them.
Yeah.
And we need to stop that because the beauty of our government that our founding fathers gave us was a decentralization.
Absolutely. Of power. And we've definitely centralized way too much power. And even on areas that are, totally unconstitutional, we've created all these categories of unconstitutional powers, or allowed them, I should say. And I mean, that's part of the reason our budget is the way it is. Most of that is for unconstitutional things. Agenda 21/2030, that's just another form or another avenue that the communist/socialist, globalist, whatever you want to call them, use, correct?
Yes. It was originally Agenda 21, and that's why you had the pandemic in 2020, was to push for the Great Reset in 2021. And we were successful in stopping them, but these people are very patient. Oh, well, it's not going to happen in 2021. We'll push it to 2030.
Right.
And so I look to see some big thing happen in 2029.
Right.
And I don't know what it is. A lot of times what they like to do is foreshadow what they're going to do. So 3 to 5 years before 2020, they were talking about, this mass outbreak of, diseases and stuff. Well, just listen to what they say. What's Klaus Schwab been talking about? He's been talking about, before he stepped down, he was talking about an EMP attack.
Right.
Where there's no power. An EMP, no power. Yeah. So maybe, now that is my theory. And I'm going to tell you, that is a theory. But it's happened in the past. And so maybe something like that's going to happen. I'm not saying, it's going to happen. I'm saying it's likely to happen by what they like to do, how the enemy operates. Know your enemy, basically.
Right. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
But that's one of the things that, we do as the John Birch Society. is we try to do what Sun Tzu said in The Art of War. He said, "If you know your enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself and not your enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle." So basically, if you know your enemy and you know yourself, you'll be successful. If you know yourself and not your enemy, you're going to suffer more losses than you expect. And if you don't know anything, well,
Yeah. Well,
too bad.
Do you have some examples of issues that John Birch kind of led on and pointed out that were problems and they were kind of, ignored, disregarded, or called conspiracy nuts, but now pretty much everybody recognizes, yeah, hey, that's an issue. You got a few examples of those?
So one example in particular, 10 years ago, we ran I think it might have been 2013. No, 2010 to 2013, we ran some stuff about how the UN wants us to eat bugs. And oh man, you're a conspiracy theorist. They don't want us to eat bugs. And 2 or 3 years ago, they just dumped $2 or $3 million into the normalization of eating bugs.
Yep.
Into propaganda ads and stuff, saying, "Oh, this is normal. This is," and
New
it's kind of
protein.
like, well, pound for pound, there's more protein in a bug than it is in beef. Well, I'll keep eating my beef, and you can have the bugs if you want all that protein.
Right.
Another one back in the 80s, they were talking about, might have been 70s, I forget, 70s, 80s. They were talking about, oh, well, we need to do this. We need to put fluorine and chlorine, and it's safe, and it's going to help your teeth.
Right.
It's all really, it's great for you. It's not going to hurt you. We put this in the water. It's fine. And then all of a sudden, oh, well, fluorine and chlorine, you drink it, and it lowers your IQ by like 10% or 10 points or, something like that. I don't know the exact numbers, but when pregnant women drink it and if it's at or above the legal limit allowed in water, their children are, 3 to 10 IQ points lower.
Wow.
But here's the other thing. It also lowers testosterone in men. But we've known this for 70 years. The Japanese in their prisons, they put extra fluorine and extra chlorine in the water.
You're talking fluoride and chlorine?
Fluorine, yeah, fluoride, chlorine, all those, different things like that. They put that extra in the water of the prisoners because it lowers their testosterone and they don't fight each other.
Right.
If you're tired, you don't buck the system. If you're tired, and men really need this. I mean, to function, not just
they need testosterone. They don't need the fluoride and they don't need the chlorine. Right. Yeah.
Right. They need testosterone to do that. And also, they want population control. And if men have lower testosterone,
yep.
Well,
they're working at both ends. They're pro-abortion and then they're working on the guys as well.
Yep. And so you lower the pregnancy rate if you have men with lower testosterone. That's science. I mean, that's just the way it works. And so that's what some of the stuff that the John Birch Society does is, expose the different things. Another thing in particular, we exposed Fidel Castro as a communist before that. And I think we have a clip of Eisenhower go, "Oh, well, we had no clue Castro was a communist." Like, we were talking about that the whole time. He just wouldn't listen to us. We knew.
Let me ask you this, and this may have been a little bit later after John Birch Society was established, but I know there was an issue between William F. Buckley of the National Review and the John Birch Society, where I think he basically called them extremists or bigots or whatever it was, whatever terminology. Do you know about that issue? Can you talk about that?
Yes, and we have a book covering the history of that called William F. Buckley, a Pied Piper of the Establishment. And so he had a show on, and anytime anybody says anything bad about the society, I always look at where they come from, what, where are they published, different things like that. And I have a slide here on
Excuse me.
Buckley. But so he had a show on NPR. Now I did an interview for NPR a couple of years ago in Georgia, and they said, well, Arthur Hampton from the John Birch Society, a dealer in conspiracy theories, says this, And the whole interview, it was an hour long, and she quotes the strangest stuff that I'd imagine. She asked me, it was back when the Trump was getting indicted, and they said, what do you think? I said, well, you've got Fast and Furious, you got Extortion 17, you've got Benghazi, you've got Hunter Biden laptop, you got all this stuff, and you're going after this guy? What?
Right.
And my point was, it seems to be a witch hunt, okay? If he did something wrong, go after him, yeah, but what about all these other things, And she said, Georgians still support Trump even after the indictment, and quoted me saying something like that. And I thought, man, this place is liberal. So NPR is indeed a liberal organization.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They don't have anybody conservative on NPR, correct?
Right. And I think we just defunded them, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. The Trump administration defunded them or said they were going to.
Well, praise God if they did. And Buckley had a show on NPR.
Right.
Now, right there shows you.
Yeah.
He's a neocon, and it's controlled opposition.
Right.
They used him to paint the John Birch Society in a bad light, because when you're effective, they target you. They do that in politics. They do that in sports. I mean, if you have a receiver in football that's catching it all the time, they double team him. They switch around the defense to try to stop him. They do the same in basketball. If you have someone that's hot, that's scoring a lot, they try to position their defense to try to stop them. It's the same thing in politics. It's the same thing with this. We were very effective in stopping the New World Order and the deep state and the communist agenda, and so they targeted us with William F. Buckley, painting us in a bad light and going, oh, they're right-wing extremists.
Yeah, that was in the 60s or 70s, right? Mid to late 60s, early 70s.
Yes, and people believed it, and
but here's the thing: it was effective for a long time as well, because I'm a member now, and I've known about the John Birch Society for a while. But for a long time, whenever I would, the subject came up, somebody would say, "Oh yeah, they're wackos, they're conspiracy theorists, they're this, they're that," and I'm like, "Well, okay, I'll check out and see what they say and see if I agree with you." But that was years after the fact. But you guys seem to be making some headway now, right?
Oh, we're making a lot of headway. Since 2020, people have woken up. And the beauty of the John Birch Society is we deal with a lot of different things because they're pushing for a lot of different things. In a totalitarian government, you have to deal with every area of life. And so what I like to say, it's more of a worldview ideological thing. We want to cut the tree down at the root. We want to go after the people that are pushing for this agenda. We want to go after your Klaus Schwabs and and expose your Bill Gates and all these folks that are pushing for this stuff, instead of going after the issue. Yes, we want to deal with the issue, but if you cut the tree down at the root, all the branches come with it.
Right.
And it's not just a one-hit wonder issue. You got a lot of things. My fiance works for the Georgia Right to Life, who was actually disassociated from the national right to life for actually being pro-life. Go figure that. And she's all about stopping abortion. And I asked her, I said, okay, you stop abortion in Georgia, what then? What then? what's next? So it's not just a one issue thing, it's an entire worldview. We want to go after the people pushing for population control. That includes abortion. That
Right.
includes MAID, which you're going to start seeing some MAID bills come in.
What does that stand
medical
for?
medical assisted suicide.
Okay.
Basically, your Dr. Kevorkians are coming in. The right to die. You'll hear that
Yeah.
as some of their talking points. The vaccines making people infertile. All these things is just little branch issues toward the goal of population control. So we
Right.
want to go after the people pushing for population control. It's kind of like in the military. You want to put down suppressive fire. You got to fire a lot of bullets to stop the guy from shooting at you. But if you take one bullet and put it in that guy's head that's shooting you, you don't have to worry about it.
Right.
Take the gun from him, kind of deal. And you don't have to worry about him shooting you. And in recent history, there was two different books written. One was on the conservative movement, and I forgot the guy's name. A woman that read that book that hates the John Birch Society, give it to me and says, read this book. Look how bad the John Birch Society is. And the first thing I did was look at the author. Before I read any book, I look at the author because I want to know the angle
Right.
of where he's writing.
Yeah.
And the first thing on the cover was New York Times bestseller, 21 different times New York Times bestseller, regularly published in the New York Times. Now, here again, is the New York Times a liberal organization or is it a conservative organization?
Right.
I think we can agree it's pretty liberal. I don't have any conservatives on there. But here you have this one guy that's supposed to be conservative that's writing about the John Birch Society. And he's conservative. Yeah, right.
What are some of the different publications you guys have in different shows? Because you got quite a bit now.
So the big thing is the magazine, The New American, trying to cut through the propaganda. And our bread and butter is reporting on things that MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News does not report on. All three are controlled opposition.
Right.
Or all three is controlled. Rupert Murdoch owns Fox News, and he's a member of the Council of Foreign Relations. He's a globalist. That's not conservative. And so that's our bread and butter, is reporting on things that the mainstream propaganda does not report on. I think Trump called it fake news. I want to call it propaganda because that's what it is.
Yeah.
The next thing that we have for subscribers of the magazine and members is the Insider Report. That's published on Fridays, and it's basically a bulletin that just gives you a quick rundown of what's going on a weekly basis, so
On
that
major
we can stay
topics.
abreast of. Yes, and it's not a full publication. It's just a publication, but it's just like a bulletin type deal.
Right.
So you can read it weekly. It's not long. Now, in the magazine, it comes out once a month. There's some padded, in-depth research done there, longer articles, in-depth articles. And the other ones, it contrasts big, little. And the other thing, there's two other things. One is the bulletin that we produce for our members once a month. Now, that has our action items in it, and what to do about the problem. So we don't just talk about the problem. We organize in chapters to do something about the problem. And I can get to that in a minute. The last publication, and this is one that I really like because I'm over all these states and I can't keep track of all the state legislators in the 9 states that I have, much less what they do in D.C.
Right.
And in every state, you got a Senate and you got a House of Representatives. So it's 2 things to track in every state. And then, when it comes to each state, toward the end of the session, you've got 4,000 bills come through. I can't track that. There's no way.
Right. So how do you evaluate them in the report then?
So what we do is we have our scorecards, and you can go to thenewamerican.com, click on Freedom Index, and there to get the federal one, you click on the Congress. To get the state one, you scroll down to the map and you click your state that you want, and you get the state one there. And so we have a scorecard that takes 6 votes based off of the Constitution, and usually we put the part of the Constitution that it pertains to.
Only 6
So
votes?
they can well, we do 6 because there's a lot of things that they vote on that doesn't really pertain to big things, but we pick 6 big things because we put it in a format to where you can print these off and hand them out.
Right.
And as you're handing things out, people will look at a few votes, but if you have one that has 20 or 30 votes on it, people are not going to look at it.
Gotcha.
And so that's the format, that one of the tools that we provide for our members is we put it in a format that you can print it out to make people aware and educate people on how they vote. This is a very effective tool. Because I was just speaking in Bremen, Georgia, and they were talking about how conservative their legislator was,
right.
and yada yada yada. One of them was give me one second, Tyler Paul Smith, okay, and they were saying, he's so conservative, and the other one is Timothy Bearden. Okay, Timothy's so conservative, and I said, really, he's conservative? So I hand him the scorecard at the GOP meeting. I go, if he's so conservative, why did he vote for subsidies for private schools and homeschooling?
Right.
He voted for subsidies for that. Yeah, they call it school choice, but we already have school choice. It's really funding private schools and homeschooling.
Right.
But if you're a private school and you take public funds, you ain't private anymore.
Right. Yeah. We got that thing going on here. It's going on everywhere.
Yes, and that's one of the issues is they push it. It's a coordinated effort because it's going on in every state.
Right.
And he looks at it and he goes, he didn't vote for that. I said, yes, he did. And he looks down and he goes, he did vote for that. Why did he vote for that? I said, don't ask me that question. He's your representative. You go talk to him and you ask him, why did you vote for this? That's a legitimate question. You're supposed to be representing me, and I don't want subsidies for private schools and homeschools because it's a backhanded way to take control of it, or they jerk the money out from under you.
Right.
The other one is the thing that I talked on, SR 23 in Georgia. Under the guise of term limits, and we can talk about term limits, that's really bad. They want to call an Article 5 convention to open the whole Constitution up to change it.
Yeah.
And there was term limits in the Articles of Confederation, and our founding fathers lived under term limits, and they realized, hey, this is really bad because it takes the accountability away from the constituents. If you're already on your way out, term limited, there's no accountability.
Yeah.
It's like putting in your 2 weeks notice. What are you going to do? Vote for someone else?
Yeah.
I'm already on my way out. I'm going to vote the way I want to vote. And the voting records do go straight into the toilet. And so he voted to change the U.S. Constitution. And the people, when I told those people that, they were appalled because you had a bunch of veterans in there.
Right.
And I myself was a captain in the Army. And we all swore the same oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And here, your legislator is voting to change the very thing that you swore an oath to defend?
Yeah.
That's a stab in the back. And so it's all these false solutions that we want to point out that aren't really solutions.
Let me ask you this. How is the way you guys evaluate your legislative report different than, let's say, Heritage or one of those other supposedly conservative organizations?
So Heritage, for the most part, is a good organization. I do question some of their stuff because they took a little bit of money from Convention of States, and so now they're on board with calling for an Article 5 convention to change the Constitution. They got a pretty good class on the Constitution, but then they want to change it. That doesn't make any sense to me. And it's the same thing we talked about earlier about the pro-life movement, the same thing we talked about perpetuating their own existence. You have this Constitution course, and it's pretty good for the most part, but there's a fly in the ointment. Rick Green has another Constitution course, biblical citizenship, or what does he call it? Patriot Academy, and the fly in the ointment there. And I had one person tell me that didn't know what it was, and when I told them, hey, it's pretty bad. Now for the most part, it's good, but at the end, it's pretty bad.
What's bad about it?
Tells me, oh, he wants to call for an Article 5 convention, and the last session, let me quote the woman that saw this. She said, it sounded like an infomercial for Article 5. I said, yeah, because it was an infomercial. They funded the production of this Constitution course, and then at the end, they want to change it. It's kind of like, what? Why did you just teach the Constitution if you want to change it?
Right.
It's
and if they're not paying attention to the Constitution now, why does anybody think if they amend it they will pay attention to it? The bottom line is the people and the states, primarily the people through the states, have to hold them accountable, and that's a challenge with all the federal money. All the tax dollars that the federal government bribes our states with. That's one of the big problems we have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so this is some of the tools that we use to provide members with so they can be effective. Now, we are an action-oriented society. What we want to do is start chapters. And Robert Welch, our founder, wanted it to be personal. Do it in your home.
Right.
Kind of like the first century church. They met in homes, small cells, meeting in homes, discipling the nations, teaching them to observe what God commanded or Christ commanded. So our format is very similar. Now, we do meet in other places. Chapters do meet in other places, civic centers,
right.
Libraries, restaurants.
So how would you start up a chapter if you wanted to start one in your area?
So what I would do is first thing I would do is go to jbs.org. There's a Get Involved, Act Now button. Click on that and fill out. First, you got to join, and then there's a button where you click Start a Chapter, and it'll get you in contact with your local coordinator, state coordinator over that, and they can guide you to starting one. But I'll give you what I try to do with chapters to begin with. So first you got to find a leader, or a leadership team to get it going, and just become effective on the local level.
Right.
So just on the local level, there's a ton of things to go to that one person cannot get involved with completely and have a life. You've got city council, county council, school board, zoning and planning, legislative delegation, economic development, GOP meetings, Democratic Party meetings, Libertarian Party, all these different things that meet usually once a month. And they're legislating.
Right.
Most of them are legislating. And they're going, and they're going, and they're going. And, we're too busy, talking about, the Tennessee Vols, or, I'm here in South Carolina, go Gamecocks. We're so distracted that all these people are legislating, and they're raising taxes, and we don't see it till we get our tax bill and go, that's more than last time. Wonder what happened.
Right.
Well, that's because they keep raising the taxes to do more. And I just named off 6, 7 things. One person cannot go to 7 things.
Can't cover all that,
especially if it's on the same thing.
Yeah.
So what we do is we get a group of you have to have 8 people to start a chapter. Meet together once a month. Talk about the problem. That's step 1. Talk about the problem. But it doesn't need to be get together and talk about the problem and stop there. You don't stop at talking about the problem. That's right. The first step. The second step is, what are we going to do about the problem? They're implementing critical race theory, for example, in the schools. Let's go to school board and use our testimonies to hand out materials there to show how bad critical race theory is, or you've heard defund the police. Well, what they really mean is defund the local police.
Yeah.
That's why our action point is to support the local police and keep them independent.
Local. Yeah. Okay.
And so, they're doing that. Well, let's go talk to the sheriff. Let's, who can go? Two people can two people go talk to the sheriff and inform him and give him some information about that. County, the Economic Development Board, they're wanting to bring in Section 8 houses and house all the illegals.
Right.
We need to stop that because we're paying for it. And we're paying for, not only are you paying for the housing, you're paying for the schooling of these illegals. You're paying for their health care. They're giving them a stipend every month. I mean, it's on and on and on and on. And then your taxes go out through the roof, and you wonder what happened.
Yeah.
Well, it's because nobody's paying attention. Nobody's going to these things. Yeah. So that's just on the local level. And how many counties do you have in Tennessee?
95.
And that happens 95 different times in just Tennessee.
Yeah, yeah.
And that doesn't even include the state legislation and the federal legislation.
Right. Which all gets enacted at the local level. Any closing thoughts?
The time for being the silent majority is over. The time for being a lone wolf is over. We need to band together and fight back against this enemy that's plaguing our land, this cancer that's plaguing our land. And unless we work together, it's just going to continue to get worse. Because the one thing that the crazy communist liberals do better than the conservatives is they lay down their differences and they work together to fight against us.
Yep.
We need to say, okay, we agree on 90%. I disagree with you on one or two things, but we need to work together as a wolf pack and not be a lone wolf and say, let's fight back.
Yep. And they've infiltrated all the institutions, and there's just so many things that come down, even at the county level, that you just you don't think anything of it. But when you start digging, you realize what their overall plan is, what they're trying to implement. And that's where you have to stop it at, because for the most part, your state seems to be complicit with your federal government on a lot of these things. Either complicit or they're either, let's say, incompetent or in cahoots, one of the two. And then it gets down to your local level. Once it gets down to the local level, if somebody doesn't throw up a red flag and do something, then it's going to happen. And so the local level, which I've been guilty of, I don't pay as much attention to that as I do the state. That's where I pay a lot of attention to, is the state. But the local level is important too, because that's where it's ultimately going to happen at. So jbs.org is the website. And if somebody does want you to come and speak, you're the regional director, you cover a whole bunch of states. I know you're on the road a lot, but you will come and give them like an overview and then show them some of the resources that you have for whether it's books or videos or whatever.
Absolutely. Like I said, I got a lot of states, and I'm willing to come. If you can, want me to come and speak, I can do that. I might have to schedule some stuff out a little bit, but I would love to come. I want to make Tennessee a better place. I want to make the South a better place. I want to make America a better place. In any way, shape, or form I can do that, please don't hesitate. Feel free to get on the website, go to contact my local coordinator. That's how you can get my contact information. And, consulting people to get active and to do things that are effective. I love doing that, because I'm one person, I can't be everywhere, but I can help you where you are be effective.
Absolutely. Well, hey, thank you for being with us, and thank you for all you do. I want to thank the audience for taking the time to watch our program tonight. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe, so please be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons, as well as the notification bell. Make sure you never miss an episode. We appreciate your support. Thanks again to Jonathan and Mary for their financial support from July through October. You guys are great, and we really appreciate it. Check out our audio podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and other platforms as well. Sign up for our weekly newsletter at our website, tninformer.com. Find and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. A few announcements here. The Stewart County Sons of Confederate Veterans will host Gene Andrews on October 14th, 7 p.m. That's tomorrow night at the Stewart County Visitor Center for a discussion on Nathan Bedford Forrest and the true story of the so-called Fort Pillow Massacre. The Henry County GOP will host a meet and greet for Monty Fritz, who's running for governor, on October 23rd, 6 p.m. at Tom's Pizza, 2501 Eastwood Street. Arrive early, please, if you intend to eat. The Stewart County GOP will host a meet and greet for Monty Fritz, October 30th, 6:30 p.m. at the Stewart County Visitor Center. If you haven't heard Monty speak, you need to get out and hear him. Next Monday, October 20th, Kathy Henners and Pastor Stuart Reynolds of England will join us to discuss how Islam has destroyed England and the rights of the citizens with the help of the government, and how to keep that from happening here in Tennessee. Our second show next week, investigator Mike Elam joins us to tell us the ugly truth about Buford Pusser of Walking Tall fame. Hope you can join us. That's it for now. Good night from Paris, Tennessee, that is.